Americans understand that some people will earn more money than others, and we don't resent those who, by virtue of their efforts, achieve incredible success. That's what America's all about. But Americans overwhelmingly agree that no one who works full-time should ever have to raise a family in poverty.
Since early 2013, President Obama has been rallying both corporations and Congress to raise the federal minimum wage. Currently sitting at $7.25 per hour, many of America's workers under the federal standard have only one thing on their mind.
Please, sir, I want some more.
What? What? Ask for more?
But what? What's wrong with raising the minimum wage of millions of Americans who today earn less than the minimum wage workers of 30 years ago?
Today, the federal minimum wage is worth about 20% less than it was when Ronald Reagan first stood here.
If the minimum wage had retained its value over those years, we'd be looking at a new wage of nearly $9 per hour. In fact, individuals who rely on a full-time minimum wage job annually earn slightly over $15,000 a year, just above what's considered to be the poverty line. But if this individual has a child, as nearly a quarter of all minimum wage workers do, they are just about equal to the poverty line. Any additional children or dependents will continue to plummet this number another $4,000 below the poverty standard. Currently, there are nearly 4 million people working minimum wage jobs. Including these individuals, a pay increase would affect an additional 35 million workers, as these workers earn within 150% of the federal minimum wage, which is about 1/3 of the overall U.S. workforce. Another way to look at this is that over 10% of the entire U.S. population would be earning a bigger paycheck at the end of each week. Opponents of raising the minimum wage point out its biggest and one of its only flaws, an increase in unemployment rates.
Well, President Obama wants to raise the minimum wage, but Herman Cain worries he'll raise the unemployment rate while he's at it. Check this out. Of the 8 states with an $8 or higher minimum wage, look at their unemployment rates. They're all well above the national average. Only 3 states are an exception.
By raising the minimum wage, a proven side effect is also to raise the unemployment rate. A recent New York Times article reveals that as many as 500,000 workers could potentially lose their jobs if the federal wage was increased to $10 per hour. But this proposal would also alleviate nearly twice as many citizens out of poverty. But one beneficial alternative to raising the minimum wage all at one time is to instead conduct a slow increase.
My understanding is the overwhelming weight of the evidence is that if you institute a moderate minimum wage increase, we don't see the kind of negative employment effects. There's been study after study after study comparing jurisdictions where the minimum wage has gone up and jurisdictions where the minimum wage has not gone up, and you don't see differential employment effects in those 2 jurisdictions.
While yet another method of offsetting an increase in unemployment includes the fact that people will, in turn, have more money to spend. Those who couldn't afford a single movie ticket without falling below the poverty line would now be able to invest in a wider variety of areas within the economy.
According to the study, the hike would increase wages by $35 billion, and the resulting increase in consumer spending would mean a GDP boost of $22.1 billion, which in turn would support about 85,000 new jobs.
Without a doubt, raising the minimum wage would be beneficial to not only 30% of the entire U.S. workforce, but to the nation as a whole. But there's still one more element to the situation that's currently under debate, and would keep Congress away from having to readdress minimum wage year after year. It's called indexing.
So here's an idea that Governor Romney and I actually agreed on last year. Let's tie the minimum wage to the cost of living so that it finally becomes a wage you can live on.
By indexing the minimum wage, it will retain its real-world value over time throughout a shifting economy. This means that minimum wage workers now and 40 years from now will be making an equivalent net value. With this, millions of Americans will be earning a more livable wage, and Congress can focus on improving other matters.
This will help families. It'll give businesses customers with more money to spend. It does not involve any new bureaucratic program. So join the rest of the country. Say yes. Give America a raise. Give them a raise.